Good afternoon. I just make sure that I'm live here. And it looks like I am. All right. So good afternoon. Carol Buckalew with Inky Stampers. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm just turning up my volume on my cell phone. Make sure you guys can hear me. So I have a pretty embossed card here for you today. Actually quite simple to create, and I'm going to kind of tilt this so you can see the gold embossing on this card. Credit goes out to Amy Williams. I was inspired to create this card. I saw a video that Amy did on her YouTube channel, and her cards were a little bit different. One of them, she did the Joseph's coat technique, if you're familiar with that. This is not quite that. And another one, she did kind of multicolored leaves, you know, sponging on the background and then stamping with clear embossing powder. Hi, Faith. Thanks so much for joining. Thank you. Yeah, this is a pretty card. I was just saying that I was inspired by Amy Williams, who was another Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I happened to catch a video where she created this card, and so I wanted to make it also. So mine's a little bit different from hers, but I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. Hi, Mary. Thanks so much for joining. So the products that I used, this is the Inked and Tiled bundle, is probably one of my favorite stamp sets. Seriously. These images just are stamped beautifully. You know, they're kind of rustic, beautiful sentiments. And now I did not use the, actually, I don't think there are no dies with this stamp set. I had to think there for a minute. But what I did use, I used the Dainty to Light dies, and I used the small daisy flower and then the flower centers, as you'll see here in a minute. And then I also used the Nested Essentials dies, and I just used the second to smallest banner die for my sentiment. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do some stamping first, and I'm going to do my ink stamping first, and then we're going to come back and we're going to stamp a little bit with first some mark ink, yeah, okay. So this is my inside panel, a piece of Very Vanilla, and this measures 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And I want to stamp the large leaf image from the Inked and Tiled stamp set in copper clay on the bottom of my inside panel here, and just right in the corner. And this is a thank you card. A lot of times I don't stamp inside greetings on my cards. That just gives me the flexibility to come back later if I want to. And this is my envelope, also Very Vanilla. Let me get my ink pad out of the way there so I don't accidentally get into it. I'm not gonna stamp this full image on the envelope, just so we don't interfere with the address line or anything like that. So that is it for the copper clay. And then I'm going to bring in some pumpkin pie. And I've got the single image of the flower from the Inked and Tiled stamp set. And we're going to ink that up in pumpkin pie. And it's okay if I lap over those leaves. The pumpkin pie ink is lighter. And if it showed through a little bit, I'm okay with that, like it did there. That's fine. Set that aside to dry. This is my inside panel. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to stamp the flowers here partially on either side of that large leaf image. And so this card is for the Happy Inkin' Thursday blog hop tomorrow. And I need to clean my stamps off here. And we have a theme challenge, which is fall or leaves. So I've got the fall colors going here. I've got some leaves going, so I think I'm going to be good there with my with my card for the hop tomorrow. Just get all the ink off of these, and then we're good. Now, I already pre-stamped my sentiment. It was a little fussy, mostly because the sticker wasn't very straight. But I'm going to set this panel, this inside panel and envelope aside for a minute, and we are going to work on stamping in Versamark. And I really want to make sure that that stamp is nice and dry before I get it into my Versamark ink. Just kind of blotting it on my grid paper here. So I have here, and my video just froze. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Can you drop me a comment if I'm still with you guys? Okay, it looks like maybe the video is caught up again. I do not know why there are issues with the video, but it's frustrating, I can tell you. So I have here a panel of copper clay, and this is 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And I'm going to get out my little embossing buddy. Now you can get the embossing buddy and like a tray and some tools for embossing. You'll find those in the annual catalog. I just have my embossing buddy. But I want to really coat this card good. Want to make sure I get nice clean images. And then we're going to get the Versamark ink out. If you're not familiar with Versamark, it's a sticky ink, and it's going to allow the embossing powder to stick wherever I stamp with this stamp. And so I'm going to just start laying some images down here with the Versamark, and this stamp really stamps beautifully. And I love it with, I really love it with the gold embossing. Let me bring one down here maybe from this direction. So I'm just basically looking to get kind of consistent images all across this panel. We're going to stamp it a couple of more times here. And let's come up this way. And I'm re-inking each time between stampings, just because I want to make sure I've got good coverage. And let's turn the stamp around this way, and maybe we'll stamp right there. And then I'm just going to stamp kind of the tip of this stamp in here to fill kind of the edges. Okay, and maybe once more in there. And we'll stamp it right there. And maybe just a small tip right up here. Like that. And I'm being careful not to touch that stamped ink. Now with Versamark is very sticky, and it can kind of set up. So when you're using Versamark, make sure to clean your stamps off well, and try not to wait too long. Because, I mean, I'll tell you that every once in a while, I will take an old toothbrush and some dish soap to my stamps. If I've been using a lot of Versamark, I may do that to that stamp just to make sure it's nice and clean and ready to go for next time. Okay, so we can set the inks aside, and let me grab my embossing powder. And I have already used my embossing buddy on this sheet here. And this takes quite a bit of I am spilling the embossing powder on myself. That's not good. And I'm just going to try to kind of get that to spread out. And where my finger was sitting, I can see a big glob of powder. So I'm just going to take, this is just an old cheap paintbrush, and just kind of wipe that away. I can see one spot I missed here in the corner. And that looks good. I'm gonna set that aside for a minute and get this embossing powder back in my container. There we go. And I'm kind of wiping the crumbs off here because I need that piece of paper again. Cap up my embossing powder here. Get any crumbs off my work surface. I don't want to be embossing my work surface for sure. All right. Okay. So let me grab my tweezers. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this panel and my heat tool. I'm going to turn the heat tool on here for a second. There are two settings on our heat tool. Setting 1 would be for drying, and setting 2 is for embossing. And I like to make sure that my heat tool is kind of preheated before I start embossing. And if it's noisy, my apologies. This will be quick. Let's see if we're ready yet. Okay, yes, it is starting to turn. I don't know if you can see that turning or not. I can see it very clearly. And I'm just going to work my way down this panel. And as soon as the embossing turns bright gold, I am going to move on to another area. And you want to make sure that you're getting the tips of the leaves. It's kind of easy to forget those. But you can see how quickly it turns. It really does go quite quickly. Almost done. And just look at that real quick, and I see one spot I missed right there. And that looks good to me. All right, let me just set this somewhere safely out of the way. All right, so there we go. So you do want to give your embossing just a tad, just a second to dry. So you don't smudge it, because until it cools, you definitely, I just see a spot I missed. Hold on. I checked it, but I see a spot that looks like it needs a little bit more heat. There we go. Okay. Hey, Karen, thanks so much for joining. I do love embossing. It is magic, Faith, I agree. So I just had to turn my heat tool back on. Give that a quick blow here because I'm going to do some ink blending now. And I don't know if you can see on my card, but I only ink blended around the edges of this panel. I left the center the copper clay color, and I did that on purpose just to kind of give the appearance of some light on the background of that card. So that's what I'm looking to do here now, and I'm going to blend early espresso ink all around the perimeter of this panel. And then we can start assembling the card. And I'm really hoping I don't run over today. Between the embossing and assembling flowers and that kind of thing, it can take a little extra time. I think I may need to re-ink my early espresso ink pad, is honestly. Kind of having to work hard here at getting that ink blended. But I just love the copper clay and the early espresso. I brought in some pumpkin pie on this card, and these are my colors. These are so my colors. I love fall. And, you know, when I was younger, excuse me, I had to make a conscious decision to not buy all of my clothes in earth tones, because I tend to do that just because I love them so much. I don't know why. You know, some people like pastels, some people like bright colors. I'm an earth tone person for sure. And so I have to get out of my comfort zone a little bit to, you know, to explore other colors, because I'm always drawn to these fall-like earth tone colors. All right, almost done here. Almost got myself worked around here. And I'm just kind of putting my fingers down in the center where I'm not ink blending. Oh, and you knew what? Of course I forgot to grab a paper towel. I'm going to need to excuse myself here real quick and grab a paper towel. Just so that I can buff that ink off of the embossing. So excuse me for just a moment. Okay, I really need to start keeping some towels here at my desk. And I'm just going to buff those embossed leaves just to get any excess ink off. Faith, I see your comment. She didn't even disappear here. Did I disappear or did somebody else disappear? All right, there we go. Still dealing with a few crumbs of embossing powder, and I can set that aside. And we are going to start working on assembling our card. And let me grab all my little pieces. We're going to put a few flowers together here. So these are the daisies. I cut out a, oh yeah, the video I'm afraid is not wonderful today. So I've cut out 6 of the daisies in pumpkin pie ink. And let me grab my glue here. And I am going to apply glue to 3 of these. Just a little bit to the centers. You don't need much. And so each flower is basically 2 layers. And I'm just going to try to offset those petals. If it's not perfect, that's fine. But if you can get them slightly offset, that gives them a little more dimension. There we go. Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you confirming that. Yeah, my video blips out on the screen, you know, when I'm doing a live. And I just don't know what the problem is. My son's an IT guy. I've had him check things, and I'm really just not sure what the deal is with if it's a Facebook issue, if it is, you know, an issue on my end. Really not sure. All right. And the video did freeze there for a minute for me, and then it kind of caught up. And so I'm just adding some copper clay flower centers to each of these with just a small, small dot of glue. There we go. Whoops. That guy was a little crooked. I just wanted to fix him there. All right. And I'm going to just kind of tease up that first, and if I get the second layer, that's fine too, but I just want to tease up a few of these flowers, petals, again, just to give them a little more dimension, a little more depth. There we go. Whoops. Alrighty. And then we can start assembling the card, and we will pretty much be done, I think. I may have forgotten to stamp on my envelope flap. I've got to check that. Those are extra centers. We can get rid of those. All right, let's layer up our card here. So I have mats in pumpkin pie, and I'm going to adhere both the inside panel and our embossed and ink blended panel to a pumpkin pie mat. And these mats are 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. So as you can see, I've got a wider border between the panel and the mat. And sometimes I like that look. Just make sure that's down good. I was noticing that the panel was curling a little bit. I'm not sure why. Maybe from the heat embossing. And this is our inside panel. And I've got a very vanilla card base. So we will get these into our card base here as soon as I get this glued up. So exciting news. The moment that everybody's been anxiously awaiting, the mini catalog went live today for customer orders. And I'm sure everyone has seen all the wonderful examples from products from that catalog. So I hope you're excited to get your order in. There really are some spectacular, lots of Christmas, beautiful, beautiful Christmas products and sweets, fall, Halloween. I mean, just some really fantastic things in this catalog. So be sure to check it out. And Stampin' Up! Just came out with 5 new designer series papers. One of them is, actually 2 of them, I believe, are specialty papers. And so when I'm putting this panel down, I'm just looking for an equal reveal all the way around. Whoops, all the way around. This is why I like liquid glue. Give me a little wiggle room there. There we go. So these special release designer series papers, there's 5 new ones. They are also available today, and they are in the online exclusive store. So be sure to check that out. I've got all of the information on my blog, including links for both the mini catalog and the special release papers as well. And if you're a Paper Pumpkin subscriber, the deadline for the current Paper Pumpkin to receive the October Paper Pumpkin kit is, no, I'm sorry, the September Paper Pumpkin kit is September 10th. So just a few more days for that. All right, I'm going to adhere my sentiment label on with some Stampin' Dimensionals, if I can get the covers off. And I'm going to place the sentiment label about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom of the card and just a little bit in, just like that. And I'm going to glue down one of my flowers, and he is going to get positioned just kind of right there. Hold that for a second. There we go. And then I am going to cut a dimensional in half. These are already cut in half, so this is a 1/4 of a dimensional. And I'm going to pop these remaining 2 flowers up with dimensionals, and I'm overlapping my sentiment label there just a little bit, and grab this other 1/4 dimensional. Wants to stick to me. There we go. Now it doesn't want to stick to the paper. There we go. All right. And this one I'm going to put just here at the bottom of the sentiment label. And we are almost done, I believe. I did forget my flower on my envelope. Let me stamp that quickly before I forget. So that would be in pumpkin pie. and right here on the center of the flap. And simple enough. Alrighty. Close that ink up. And let's get back to our flowers. I'm going to take 2 lengths of linen thread and tie a small double bow. I love linen thread, especially with these earth tones. So pretty. There we go. And let me just trim off these ends. Don't need that quite that much. There we go. Make sure it's tight. And I'm going to grab a mini glue dot. And kind of roll that as I'm putting it down here on my sentiment label. And I'm just going to put that bow at an angle here, right at the corner of the sentiment label, like that. And I have here some adhesive back solid gems. And there is copper clay here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a few of these gems and just, I'm going to put a gem in the center of each flower, like that. And I'm kind of varying between large and medium gems. And let's tuck one right there on that flower. And then I'm going to take some really tiny copper clay gems here. Just, I think, yeah, let's do. It looks like I lost the gem off of this card. So I'll have to add one back. But I had actually 2 gems sitting on that card, so I must have knocked it off. We'll fix that real quick here. And there we go. That is our card for today. So, you know, really not difficult, and it makes for a lovely fall card. I have this as a thank you card. This would make a great, you know, fall birthday card, Thanksgiving card even. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I was really happy to see Amy Williams' video and how she did her cards. So as I mentioned, they're a little bit different from Amy's. And kind of put my own twist on it. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to thank you all so much for joining. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.